Welcome to This Just In with This Just In as your host, Justin Core. This is a show where we take a deeper dive into the stories most important to you with the people who bring you those stories. And the person we have on the show today, a return correspondent. Look, it's Joe Parris.
Here we are.
Everybody. A guy who's been clamoring, nay, demanding a return appearance.
That doesn't sound
Political reporter, Lieutenant General of the 208, and also my friend, Joe Parris.
Hello. It's good to be back.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you not trying to take over the show this time.
No, I got you.
As I have bated breath now, waiting for your This Joe In.
It's not going to happen right now.
Oh, not right now, but maybe later.
But maybe right now. Welcome to the program. This is This Joe In.
Oh, jeez.
I do have a question for you, Justin. Why do you even bother with the tie? Like, you loosen it so much. Like, is that just the gimmick here?
As a guy from the 208.
Yeah, I just lose the tie.
You hate ties.
So let me talk to you about this real quickly.
Okay.
I actually like wearing my ties. Okay,
Really?
I have a nice collection of ties. Yeah. All right, I got them at some local establishments, and I think they have some nice patterns. I get to wear them on the news at 4.
Sure.
I don't hate the no tie thing on the 208, but I want to be very clear. That's Brian's thing. I'm just following the dress code.
So, well, I mean, look, the dress code on Wake Up Idaho, the most popular and highly rated morning show, I don't know, maybe in the world, is...
Certainly not.
It's up there. That's no joke because of Maggie O'Mara. Nothing to do with This Just In.
That needs Robin.
So I'm like, well, I actually,
Yeah.
if you watch previous episodes, I've been trying to dial in the look, like the first 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah.
And originally I went with like the sleeves rolled up and like the tie undone, you know, sort of looking like sort of the old school, like reporter, you know, in the newsroom.
Yeah.
Like maybe burning a heater or something like that. Like, oh my gosh, you know, did you hear
darts in
what
the
what this person said? But then I'm like, nah, that looks maybe a little too casual. But I just wanted to somehow be in between, no offense, the 208 and, you know, sort of what I look like all put together on Wake Up.
So you don't want to go full 208 yet.
No, that's your thing. Yeah, that's
fine.
This Joe In.
My program.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if people watch this for the fashion sense.
Certainly not.
Except for that Audie episode. Yeah.
Oh, she's great.
She's an actual fashion expert.
Adrielle Tackett is one of my all-time faves. She's awesome.
Yeah. If you want to learn lessons on how to dress for TV, watch her. She famously, though, rarely wears ties. So maybe that's a lesson for all of us.
Tie. But, like, it takes effort for you to put it where it is. Like, that tie, like, you have to, like, kind of...
It's... So, there was a hairstyle, I think it's gone out of style now, where it, like, looked messy.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of work to, like, make the hair...
look
like it was messy.
No, that's what I wanted.
Unkempt.
In middle school.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. There was a product called Messy Hair, and it was just... That's when I had a full head of hair. I'm well past that. But...
As we talked
Is that
about,
$100,000 Rolex that you're trying to hide there? That's crazy, man.
it is not.
Wow.
I am not a watch guy. So, no, it is absolutely not that.
Okay, here's one more question for you.
Well, I'm
real quickly.
You know,
this is my
show. To say I was going to be interviewing you, but it's this in, so absolutely, you're driving the ship here.
You remember my wedding? You were one of my groomsmen.
I do remember it. Yes.
All right, so I gave out a watch or two to maybe the best man or something.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it'd be nice to give out some commemorative watches.
Yeah.
No one's ever wore them. What do you think that means? You think I picked bad watches?
Maybe you picked a bad best man. I know because I didn't get one.
Well, you were... I want everyone to know that Justin was...
I was on the bubble. I was last one.
What do you mean? No, you were not the last one in. You were in the top 3, 4. How many groomsmen would you have?
I play a play-in game in Dayton, Ohio to get into that lineup, but no.
You kept us in line on the Bachelor trip because we knew that like we were with Justin Core and nothing bad could happen.
And your now wife was like, "Oh, thank God Justin is going. He's going to keep him in line." I'm like, "Oh no, does that mean I'm too boring?" And we did stay very much in line.
We did.
No crazy stories. Didn't commit any crimes that I know of.
The worst thing that happened is our golfing got rained out. And we had to go to the river instead and just watch the river.
That's right. Yeah. Not that second day.
Can you believe that? Like years since that happened.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right. Anyway, that's all the time we have on this Joe in.
Thanks, honey.
Let's move on now to this.
Wait, one more question for you, and then I'll be done. I think it's a miracle that Jay Tust's retirement, not one mention of you falling down on the blue when you raced him in the 40. Were you afraid that was going to come up?
Look, I've never gotten more attention online. So if I'm just looking for clicks, baby, I was praying for more attention to that.
I was looking for the clip to try to play it on this program, and I didn't have enough time to find it. So on a future episode.
It is, next time you're on, we'll play it. I might bring Jay on, actually. Yeah, gone but not forgotten. He still
around.
Still may make occasional appearances, actually, on KTVB.
In fact, he will. So there's a tease. Anyways,
and we're going to
have
talk
your
more
program
about sports later in the show. We're going to talk more about state budgeting later in the show. You might think, oh, boring. It's important, and it's interesting because it affects literally what you pay and then how the state uses your money. First, though, let's talk about your adorable child. Finn.
Yeah.
How easy or hard is it to entertain your baby? You were talking to me about this earlier, that it's like we kind of don't know like what to do with him. So we just went to a park and people were doing stuff and it's like, hey, look at this.
Well, he loves to go outside. So like
cool.
Last night when I came home from work, we opened the back door and he started screeching with joy and we blew bubbles. We did bubbles on the back for like 30 minutes. That's his favorite thing right now. But yeah, I mean, on Sunday it must have been Sunday. Like you don't want to stay home all day because there's only certain activities you could do. I mean, he has his playpen, he has his piano he likes to play.
Yeah.
But like his favorite thing is to go on walks. And we went on a morning walk. It's getting like we have 4 hours till bedtime. Like we got to do something. We went to the park by our house and there was a volleyball tournament going on.
Nice.
So we went and sat front row and watched complete strangers get really into their volleyball tournament. And I do feel bad. It sounds like the referees didn't show up or something did. So this tournament was having a lot of trouble. And they were on the loudspeaker and they're like, all right, you know what? It's not best 2 out of 3 anymore. It's 1 game to 28. And the referees, I don't know. So we took Finn and he sat in his Finn hat and he...
So that tournament now not officially sanctioned by the Random Park Volleyball Tournament Association.
They did have trophies, I think.
Cool.
And they had concessions. It was a lovely day.
Not too shitty.
It was supposed to be a first alert weather day, but it turned out to be all right.
It was all right. Hey, first alert weather day means you got to be alert. That it's not going to be great. Yeah. So something could be coming somewhere in the viewing area. It doesn't guarantee rain or tornado or earthquake or second coming or anything like that.
Is that a weather event?
As far as yes.
Oh, okay.
It would be. Nobody's been able to predict it yet.
Sure.
But as your kid gets older, you can share more with him. Like maybe pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Joe,
sure.
Does he have a favorite right now?
He's not allowed to watch TV. So not
good
really.
For you. That's going to change later.
No, he's not interested. Trust me. Wow. There's been more than one time where Haley and I were like, we'll put something on. Like, what do you give us 5 minutes and just to relax and we'll turn something on. He's not interested in the TV.
He's like, no, I'm not going to let you relax.
No.
Yeah, you got a job to do.
We had some friends in town and they had an older baby, maybe a toddler, and they put on Miss Rachel. And he was interested.
Heck yes.
He was interested for about 30 seconds.
Well, that's not bad.
But he is a baby, so they're not supposed to watch screens until they're like 18 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I can't remember if I did that with my kids.
I don't know. I just think about kids in the 80s. Like, they just sat in the TV all the time, 80s and 90s, and they turned out fine.
Yeah, but now kids who grew up in the 80s and 90s who are older, like, we didn't do that. We were outside running around, skipping rocks and stuff. And it's like, nah, we weren't doing that. We were inside watching Thunder, Cats.
That's great.
Wow.
You turned out fine. You have a full-time job. You have a tie.
That I almost wear.
You got a watch. You're doing great, man.
Joe, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That's why I always come on your show. Up next on This Joe In or This Just In, state of Idaho. Coming up, a little short brother, but they say they're good for it. That's next on This Just In.
If I would have thought we could do 450, I would have proposed 450.
So that was Idaho's Governor Brad. Well, don't drink out of that. It's lined with lead, saying essentially the governor was saying, do not blame the budget shortfall on me, Joe. My numbers were closer to reality than the legislature's. Joe Parris, you're joining us to talk about this because I think a lot of people don't know, but you're a political insider, exactly how the budgeting process works for the state of Idaho.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And why is now the governor being like, hey, that's not on me, this shortfall?
Okay, so I want to be clear, too. There is it's a very complicated process, and I have all the documents here. I brought the DNA evidence.
Please read through it line by line. I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
How long is this? Do I get a two-part episode?
We do not have time for all that. I know you wanted a two-parter.
No, I got somewhere to be. Sorry. All right, so at the end of May, a memo came out from the Department of Financial Management, and they basically said, hey, we had this budget projection that was set, and lawmakers on the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee, which is Idaho's budgeting committee, they get to project the revenue for the year.
Okay, so this sort of starts kind of with the state of the state in January.
Sure.
Where the governor is like, this is what I would like to see for the budget. Like, this is how much I think we're going to get in taxes, federal help, whatever, and this is what I want it to be spent on. And then pretty much through the whole legislative session, the legislature, your lawmakers kind of go back and forth, especially the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee, made up of members of both the House and Senate, and they figure out exactly what they want the budget to look like. They pass a bunch of appropriations bill, budget bills, and then those are voted on by the full House and Senate. And through that's pretty much most of what the legislative session is deciding.
The only thing they have to do.
Right. Yes. And we thought also they had to pass a rules bill. That turned out to not be the case a few years ago. Surprised a lot of people. That's another story. So, yes, that's pretty much legislative session, what they have to do, figuring out, hey, deciding how much money we think is going to come in and then what we're going to spend it on.
And there can be different projections. So JFAC had one projection, and the governor's office, their economists, had a different projection. And according to this recent budget memo that came out really the last week of May, or the final days of May, there was a $141.5 million difference between the projected revenues for the state and the actuals. There's still a month left in the fiscal year. So all this is the fiscal year, July 1st. If you don't know the fiscal year, it's coming up. So get your party hats ready.
Yeah, it runs through the last half of the year and then the second.
I don't understand it all. I don't know where we started doing
second is
fiscal
the first half
years
of the next year. That's why they can only project it, because the session is going on during the fiscal year, and they're like, look, we don't know what the numbers are going to be, but we maybe have an idea. But so they were off by $140 million.
$141.5 million, according to the legislature's projection. So the governor's office had their own projection, and it still came up short, but not by $141.5 million. We'll talk about that in a second. Long story short here, this memo came out that said, hey, as basically an assigned activity to the executive agencies, have in the back of your head or do some of the paperwork that hypothetically, if there were 2%, 4%, or 6% cuts, what would you cut in your budget? And some people took that as, oh, there's certainly cuts coming. Idaho's in a tough financial position. Other people took it as, well, this document comes out every year. This was just an activity assigned to budgets. No one was actually asked to submit a rescission in their budget. But it started questions about, well, what about public education? The biggest slice of the pie in Idaho's budget is that going to start getting cut? So we had a conversation with some stakeholders, Republicans and Democrats. The Democrats talked about how they thought the projection revenue set by the legislature was, well, we'll let them say it. I think, to quote Laura Necochea, she said they were monkeying around with the numbers. And then you talk to the Speaker of the House, Mike Moyle, a Republican. He said that, there is plenty of money on the bottom line, which is true. I mean, there was $141 million difference. But at the end of the day, in the coffer, so to speak, there's almost $300 million still on the bottom line. And so when you talk to people in the governor's office, they'll tell you, well, when we budgeted, we had that cushion.
Okay. And we're going to hear from someone in the governor's office, Lori Wolf, in just a second. First, though, let's go back to sort of the budget making. And it's like, okay, we have this projection. We were off by this much. There's actually a law, correct me if I'm wrong, in the state of Idaho that says they have to sine die in the legislative session with a balanced budget.
Yes.
Balanced budget amendment. But if lawmakers can just say, well, we want to spend $140 million, then maybe we'll just estimate, we'll project that the state is going to bring in $140 million more.
But that's not what happened here, to be clear.
Okay.
I mean, a balanced budget would mean that you are zeroed out. Like, if to have a completely balanced budget
Right.
would mean that you spent everything that came in. To the point of the governor's office, whether you agree with the projection or not, in actuality, there is still about $300 million in cushion that is not appropriated that is sitting there. So when you talk about this balanced budget, it's not zeroed out. It's not Idaho going paycheck to paycheck. They have this cushion. Some argue it could be bigger and that money could be going to other programs. Some argue that that money is fine sitting there and that maybe you should have given more tax breaks, which we'll talk about in a minute.
That's an important clarification, and that's why I have you on this JustIN, Joe. So it's not like they're even over budget. Well, sort of over budget, but they budgeted for having all this extra money.
Yeah.
And they just have less extra money than they thought. Yes. All right. Again, that projected sort of revenue income coming up short. Joe, set up this piece you did with Lori Wolf on us.
Yeah, so there was a lot of questions and comments about this budget projection situation. We heard from the stakeholders, and we reached out, and we wanted to talk with the person who was in charge of the memo to ask them, what did your memo mean? Where does Idaho sit in terms of financial spots? And this is what Lori Wolf had to say. A state budget report filed at the end of May shows Idaho's projected revenue collections, that's money that comes into the state, it's $141 million below the target set by lawmakers. The report, paired with a memo from the governor's budget chief, has created questions about cuts in Idaho's financial position.
Is there concern, I guess, about the economy here in Idaho and budget projections?
No, I mean, we go through this process every year. There's no panic here. We're trying to be prepared. We're trying to understand exactly where we're at from both a revenue and a spending standpoint, and be prepared to make the best decisions we can when we submit the budget next year.
Lori Wolf is the administrator of the Division of Financial Management. She wrote the late May memo that prompted some to have a conversation.
This is very normal. Every year, try to get it out by the 1st of June. We send out what we call a budget framework to give agencies guidance on kind of where we are revenue-wise, what we're looking for in terms of budgets.
Wolf explains there is nuance in different budget projections in play. One set by Idaho lawmakers in the budgeting committee and one set by a staff economist.
Legislature increased our revenue number by an additional $50 million for fiscal year 25. So they increased that. We kept our baseline at our projection that we track. So we're just under $100 million short of our revenue projections, which is just under 2%, so still pretty good.
With that said, there is still a shortage on the projection, but Wolf says there are strong metrics and context to factor in.
Growth in revenue in both sales tax and in income. We saw about a 6% increase in withholdings, which shows strong wages and strong earnings still in households. So from an economic standpoint, we're not concerned. From a budget standpoint, we just want to make sure that we're in alignment with what the revenues are that we as a government can spend.
In the spirit of that concept, Wolf's memo asked agencies to internally prepare budget holdback scenarios of 2%, 4%, and 6%.
How would you describe what was written and kind of the activity that was assigned to agencies?
Yes, we did not ask any agencies to submit rescissions in their budget or to cut any funding for fiscal year 26 or 27. We've had years and years of record revenue growth and a huge influx of federal spending that is also, could change. So we're still watching to see what's going to happen at the federal level with the big, beautiful bill. There may be some impacts on state budgets with that, and we need to be ready for that. But really, it's kind of a reset and a prioritization for agencies. They're not huge cuts, and we have not asked them to submit it with their budgets. We've just asked them to be prepared.
The biggest slice of the budget pie in Idaho is education. So when conversations about cuts are floated, there can be concerns that public education could take a hit. But Wolf adds a key piece of context to the budget memo.
That memo went to only executive agencies. The Department of Education is under Superintendent Critchfield, and they do not receive that memo. So part of that memo was not asking public schools to do holdbacks. We will be looking at opportunities of where we need to invest in education, and depending on revenue, that will be the place that we're looking first.
From Wolf's perspective, the conversation is similar to one that an Idaho family may have at their dining room table.
It's really easy to just spend what you get, and sometimes you have to take a step back and think about, are we spending it on the right things? So that's the exercise. After 4 years of record revenue growth and influx of federal spending, we're starting to normalize that. Federal money isn't coming in, and what we're really asking agencies is what really matters and where are our priorities.
Again, don't drink out of that. Well, Wolf said it right there. It's really just sort of a question of priorities in budgeting. It's like, what do we want to spend this money on?
And I think in the most basic terms, this is just a fundamental difference of opinion of, first of all, the context here is like having a projected budget shortfall, no matter what the number is, that is important. And it is not just like, whatever, we missed the projection, whatever. It is important. So depending on what the number is, that's fine. But it's a fundamental conversation between those that say, well, instead of giving back the tax cuts, we should maybe have invested this in areas that could help Idahoans. At the same time, you'll have those of the opinion that, any dollar that the state of Idaho has left over should go back to the people. So it's just a fundamental difference of opinion on how to budget, and that's why we have elections. Right. But it's just a little one note I want to add from Administrator Wolf. June, the last month of the fiscal year, is traditionally a pretty strong month in terms of revenue collections for the state of Idaho. So whatever the projected shortfall is, it could be lessened. It could be more. So it depends. So as we get to the end of the fiscal year, they'll be able to really get an idea of what happens. Again, as Administrator Wolf said, depending on what happens at the federal level, different monies could be coming in at different levels. Right. So agencies need to be prepared on, rolling with the punches, so to speak. But at the end of the day, Idaho has a projected $278 million in reserve. That's just sitting there, not appropriated, just in case.
Right. And again, to clarify, this is for the fiscal year, which is why it's kind of a challenge to budget. You don't know exactly how much you're going to get in. You're making your budget before the fiscal year ends, because budget making process really starts in, February, March-ish, wraps up in April, May, and then the fiscal year doesn't end until June. So it's like, how much we got coming in? We'll see, but we think it's about this much. And you talked about those record-setting tax cuts during the legislative session. Mm-hmm. Those do not go into effect yet.
Right. And those were budgeted for and included in the 26 and 27 fiscal year calculation. So we'll see, though. I mean, it's one of those things where you can project and talk about it all day, but until the money comes in, it's tough to know.
Yeah. And it is tough to know. You talked about families sort of doing this around their own kitchen table, but you normally have an idea of what your paycheck is going to be. And the state actually does not know what their paycheck is going to be.
Yeah, and that's, they project.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I think we usually know what ours are going to be, but you never know.
I have a pretty good idea. Yeah. Not
it's
enough.
Pretty consistent.
No, I'm just kidding. Actually not. Depending on who's watching this. My managers are watching, not enough. Everybody else, it's enough. I'm doing great. Yours too. Arguably too big. More of this just in
stay out of
after this. If you're going to lose spectacularly. That's up next. We're back with KTVB political aficionado Joe Parris and Colorado guy and Rockies fan Joe Parris. And I got to hand it to the Rockies. When it comes to losing, they're on the top of their game, just like you, Joe Parris. They now hold the record for the most series losses in a row in Major League Baseball with 22. They are making history. They could reach the record for most losses in a single season. 134. They're on pace for 130 right now to break the modern record, but the 1899 Cleveland Spiders have that 134 mark. Joe, how proud are you?
Super proud. If you're going to be good at something, be the best at it. Be the best losers. They did win like 4 in a row last week, so they did kind of turn it around.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a bad team, so like a historically good team, great team, great, but just a regular old bad team. I'm a Mariners fan. I know all about those.
Just remember,
that's nothing special. Be special.
The Rockies traded
on a historic level.
The Rockies traded Nolan Arenado for basically a bag of baseballs and like a washing machine. So
No washing machine. Well, you got to get those whites.
It's like an ABA.
They're whitest. Look, if we've learned anything from American Idol, you got to be really great or really terrible.
William Hung.
Anything in right? William Hung made a star by
It's
being
awesome. What do you think he's doing
historically
today? Do you think he's watching?
bad. He's probably counting his money from being historically
Should get a
bad.
cameo from him. Put that
Joe, thank you for coming on your own show, This Just In. If you got comments or questions, you want to defend the Rockies, or you got budgeting questions, 208-321-5614, hashtag Justin.
Yeah, if you
See
have
ya.
personal budgeting questions, let me know. I'll just do your books.
We'll figure it out.